and this is going to ruffle feathers, but honesty is the best policy. I think this is the weakest season of Demon Slayer. I really think that it was a big step down for the series.
And the lack of any relatable traits in combination with his quick loss gave me an impression of a throwaway villain like Yogai, not an actual upper rank.
I didn't like the two upper rank demons from this season. They're interesting in concept and design, but are pretty forgettable.
And then they gave the other dude a brief 10-second backstory about how he was a stealing, murdering piece of shit and that didn't take accountability for his actions. This arc just feels like a massive downgrade compared to the previous two.
There is no point throughout the entire fight with upper rank 4 that I ever felt like, oh man, how are they gonna beat him?
This is a big downgrade between Daki and her brother, right? Even the Hashira suck compared to Tengen.
And let's not forget that lame fake out that they tried to pull with Nezuko burning alive in the sun.
Just because the story somehow makes sense, that doesn't mean the story is good.
Demon Slayer's grandest arc is upon us. With the release of the first Infinity Castle filming what will be a historic trilogy, fans are finally getting to experience the best the series has to offer in terms of story, action and animation. And we're going to talk about none of that. No positivity in this household, we are held up on the shortcomings of the past today. Demon Slayer's Swordsmith Village arc, in spite of its immense commercial success, is widely regarded to be the weakest season thus far, being considered a major step down from the record-breaking Infinity Train film and the critically acclaimed Entertainment District arc. Issues such as the shallow villains, lack of tension, and overusage of backstories stopped the arc from reaching the heights of its predecessors. This video will be a bit different to my usual content, using a similar analytical framework to instead determine the various story weaknesses in the Swordsmith Village arc, and how they could have potentially been fixed. If you end up liking the video, feel free to subscribe to my channel, hitting the like button, and leaving a comment. And without further ado, let's get into the failures of Demon Slayer's Swordsmith Village arc. Ever since Tanjirou finally met the Hashira at the end of Season 1, Demon Slayer's arcs have followed a set formula that has only become more noticeable over time. Tanjirou is sent on or ends up joining a mission, he meets a Hashira, he encounters one of Muzan's demon moons, and a fight ensues, likely resulting in the battlefield being destroyed but all or most of the innocent lives saved. Of course, the exact pillars and upper moons involved would drastically alter the tone, theming and dynamics of the story, but the general rule still stands that the more you do the same thing over and over again, the less effective it becomes. The Swordsmith Village arc's only twist on this formula is doubling our numbers, 2 Hashira and 2 upper moons this time. This may be a necessary evil due to the nature of having not just one but 2 set groups of individuals that need to be explored. You can't throw all of them at each other at once, so you have to whittle them down first, drip feeding more and more characters and stories to the audience to build up the larger battle towards the story's climax. A series I think deals with its villain group very well is Naruto, spoilers ahead. The Akatsuki are used far more dynamically than the Upper Moons, not just in their appearances but in their roles as well. Akatsuki members appear sporadically when needed, they survive encounters with our heroes and will often return under incredibly different sets of circumstances. Some members have pre-established connections to the main characters whilst others forge them over time. Deidara can act as a stepping stone on Sasuke's journey of revenge, Pain can act as the series' big bad, whereas Zetsu can be just a means for an army. Well, except for that one moment he was the big bad, okay, poor example. The only time Demon Slayer really does this is with Akaza, and lo and behold, he's highly regarded as one of the best characters in the series. There's many ways Gotouge could have flipped the script with the Swordsmith Village arc. Since we've introduced more non-Hashira Demon Slayers, why not add some non-Upper Moon demons into the mix? You could introduce Gyutaro's replacement earlier in the story and have him develop on screen as a demon and survive the arc to return in the Infinity Castle. Or, if you're feeling really wild, you could have a participating Hashira forcefully turned into a demon, completely turning the tide of battle. Gyoko and Hantengu are almost unanimously agreed to be the weakest Upper Moons in terms of writing. Not only do the pair offer very little in terms of depth, but neither of them boast the impact of being the first Upper Moon seen or defeated by the heroes, causing them to grow forgettable as antagonists. Comparing the two demons with the previously shown Upper Moons, Akaza and Gyutaro, is night and day. Akaza's entrance in the Infinity Train arc came as a shock to both the characters and the audience. His philosophy on the merits of immortality and strength through demonhood clashed wonderfully with Kyojuro Rengoku's value of a naturally short human life. This clash of ideals, mixed with the desperation crafted by just how powerful Akaza was than Kyojuro, was what made the fight memorable in spite of its sudden nature. Gyutaro and Daki similarly mirrored the heroes of the Entertainment District arc. Tengen Uzui was a man who valued style, expression, and connection above all. However, life as a shinobi would leave no room for any of those traits, and so Tengen chose to leave with his wives due to his own unique traits and values. Gyutaro, on the other hand, was rejected wholeheartedly by the Entertainment District due to his looks and demeanour. In an environment where natural beauty and elegance ruled above all, Gyutaro could barely make his way through life as a debt collector. His sister Ume was born beautiful, but even she was unwilling to submit to the patrons of the district, eventually leading to her own murder. With demonhood their only option remaining, Gyutaro and Ume would transform into monsters, terrorizing the environment they hated instead of leaving it all behind. Gyutaro and Daki also serve as inversions of Tanjiro and Nezuko, an older brother and little sister who chose to fight for demons instead of against them. Upper Moon 6 provides Tanjiro a cautionary tale of who he and Nezuko could have become, who Nezuko still could become if she fails to suppress her demonic urges. The dynamics in both character and themes present between the Slayers and demons bleed into their interactions with each other, whether that be Akaza's desperation to recruit Kyojuro, Gyutaro's detestment of Tengen, and his fleeting desire to make Tanjiro join forces with him. Upper Moon 5 Gyoko's main point of intrigue is his dynamic with the Swordsmiths. The Swordsmiths put their heart and soul into the katanas they forge for the Demon Slayers, and Gyoko is shocked to see a level of commitment that surpasses even his artistry. It's therefore fitting that it's his blood demon art that ends up destroying the village out of sheer spite. Apart from this, Gyoko has little to offer apart from being an obstacle for Muichiro to glide past. Most people regard Gyoko as nothing but a stepping stone to display how well the Demon Slayer mark competes with even the strongest of demons, and I'd be inclined to agree. His blood demon art, theme aside, isn't interesting. He makes countless stupid decisions either out of pettiness or ignorance, and even the characters themselves aren't intimidated by his presence at the end of the fight. Han Tengu holds the distinction of being one of the few demons we know as a horrible person even in their human life, having faked blindness, stolen from, and murdered several people. All this really does, however, is serve to make Tanjiro angrier at him for a short period of time. Han Tengu's primary theme is emotion and trauma. His base form that he confronts Muichiro and Tanjiro with is the Fear Demon, which quickly splits into the anger, pleasure, sadness, and joy demons as a way to mask its discomfort by projecting regular emotions. However, when Tanjiro discovers that the Fear Demon is still present and Han Tengu's weakness, the four emotion demons fuse to form the Demon of Hatred, Zohakuten. It's notable that the Anger Demon is the one to initiate the transformation, as, in response to having his fear exposed, Han Tengu's anger boils over into hatred. As a last-ditch attempt at survival, Han Tengu's fear encases itself in the Resentment Demon, having lost all of its energy through hatred, being left only with the final embers of spite. To add to the visual metaphor, each transformation that Han Tengu undergoes bears a younger physiology than the last, going from an old man to 4 young adults to a child, as if each unpacking of emotions leads further to the roots of childhood trauma. Credit to this analysis goes to u/fleshsuit pilot on the Demon Slayer Reddit for finding this connection. While the dynamics of Han Tengu and his Kido Airaku demons is certainly more interesting than Gyoko, there are still 2 main issues. Firstly, while there are hints of trauma in Han Tengu's design, no such backstory is given to explain the horrific misdeeds he commits as an adult and later as a demon. So while his character holds implied depth through his design motifs, his writing remains shallow. The second point, which you may have been able to guess from my prior analysis, is that Han Tengu holds no thematic connections to any of the characters he faces. The closest would be Genya, whose own childhood trauma motivates him to fight demons in the hope of reconnecting with his brother. But as will be covered more in later sections, Mitsuri's story revolves around identity and self-love, Muichiro is about identity and the value of trivial gestures, and Tanjiro and the Swordsmiths about carrying the weight of the previous generations in the fight against demonkind. This is why the most Han Tengu and his variants have to offer in interactions are insults and attempts to justify his own immoral actions, to anger the Demon Slayers. But that alone makes him no more special than any other fodder demon encountered in the series. As implied in the previous sections of the video, Kyojuro Rengoku and Tengen Uzui were vital components in each of their arcs, and replacing either of them with another of the 9 pillars would have lessened the impact of those stories. Kyojuro's value of fleeting human life echoes the lessons Tanjiro learns in his battle with Enmu, and makes him the perfect opponent for Akaza. And Tengen's thematic connections to the entertainment district make him an easy target for Gyutaro's fury. I do think Muichiro is written similarly well. Muichiro suffers from amnesia as a result of a brutal demon attack that occurred when he was 11, the only lingering memories being the adoption of his twin brother's sharp-tongued, straightforward personality. Muichiro spends every moment of his day working towards saving the most lives as a Hashira, struggling to see the benefits of anything that could be seen as remotely trivial. This puts Muichiro at odds with the swordsmiths, who he believes don't hold as much value as they cannot fight. But as Muichiro is put into situations that force him to make the more pointless decision, he ends up finding the key to the door of his identity. Muichiro's choice to save the few instead of the many ends up working out in the end, and Muichiro not only reawakens the hopeful optimism he had lost years ago, but he gains an appreciation for the efforts that the swordsmiths put into keeping the Demon Slayer cause alive. The only thing Muichiro's story lacks compared to Kyojuro's and Tengen's is a villain with any kind of interesting dynamic with him. Mitsuri on the other hand is an utterly wasted character, not helped by the limited screen time she gets. Mitsuri was born with an unorthodox hair colour, large appetite, and unusual muscle density, making her undesirable to any man she was arranged to marry. She spent a period of time hiding her unique traits, resulting in an unhappiness that would only be quelled when she was identified by the Demon Slayer cause. Mitsuri's role as a Hashira gives her an environment in which she can accept and love herself. The problem with Mitsuri's story is that her character's themes have nothing to do with the larger story at hand during the arc. She doesn't relate to any of the characters, the location, or the themes of the arc, making her feel like a throw-in character whose backstory is introduced only to get it out of the way in time for the final battle. Her only fight in the arc with Zohakuten is largely relegated to an off-screen stalemate so that the main plot can continue, only serving to lessen the impact she has overall. Tanjiro's development in the story thus far has been extremely focused on Tanjiro's combat abilities and his own awareness of them. Tanjiro already had the conviction to grow stronger for Nezuko's sake at the start of the series, but his awareness of his own relative weakness really shines the moment he sees Akaza impale Kyojuro Rengoku through the chest. In the Entertainment District arc, Tanjiro attempts to push himself as far as possible to summon the strength to defeat an upper moon. He overexerts his body against Daki, almost getting himself killed if not for Nezuko's intervention, and his beheading of Gyutaro using the strength of the Demon Slayer mark leads to him entering a coma following the Entertainment District mission. Tanjiro does make a lot of progress between missions, from being unable to comprehend the movements of Akaza to being able to contribute greatly in the group fight against Gyutaro and Daki. This could have been set up for Tanjiro wanting to push himself even further. Now equipped with the Demon Slayer mark and a better understanding of sun breathing, Tanjiro could have attempted to defeat an upper moon on his own without consideration of the stress those abilities would put on his underdeveloped body, rushing his own progression out of paranoia that he is currently too weak to even get close to defeating Muzan and saving Nezuko. I figured this was where the arc was going at the start, when Tanjiro speaks to Kotetsu about the idea that his mission to defeat Muzan may outlast him and fall onto future generations, secretly not wanting to burden his children and feeling the pressure of the thousands of Demon Slayers who had already died for this cause. This is built on further when Tanjiro reflects on all the people who have had to save his life thus far, and how he feels a responsibility to pay them back, summoning the strength of the mark again to defeat the Kido Airaku demons. However, this is when this plot point gets abandoned. Tanjiro is perfectly okay to relegate himself to a support role for Genya to try and kill Hantengu himself. He relies on Mitsuri to hold off Zohakuten and needs Nezuko and Genya's help to expose Hantengu's main body so he can finish him off. Logically, all of these decisions make sense, but that's not the point. We could have gotten an arc where Tanjiro disregards logic in favour of pursuing his own strength, failing to defeat Hantengu and almost killing himself in the process before finally accepting help from Nezuko, Genya and Mitsuri. We could see him finally confront the trauma of watching Kyojuro die, see him compete with Genya in trying to hunt Hantengu before they set aside their differences and help each other. Mitsuri could have even had a bigger role in calming Tanjiro down, especially with her own close relationship with Kyojuro before his death. Unfortunately, Tanjirou's character remains largely static this arc, increasing in power and nothing else, as any interesting developments are held off for the final battle. There's a theme starting to emerge here. The only impactful character decision he has to make is to sacrifice Nezuko's life to kill Hantengu, but even that decision is made for him. I actually really like Tanjiro in this arc from a personality standpoint. His interactions with the cast are funny, and giving him a break from his more eccentric counterparts allows his own sillier traits to stand out more. But the Swordsmith Village offered so much promise for his development, only to abandon it entirely, leaving the series' main character with little in terms of highlights. There are at least 5 more interesting fights Tanjiro has before his encounter with Hantengu, let alone what comes after. Again, leaving the Swordsmith Village as little more than a footnote in his story. Like with Tanjiro, many potential developments set up in prior arcs are abandoned in the Swordsmith Village. By far, the most egregious one is her adult form, and the loss of control Nezuko experiences when in it. The main conflict surrounding Nezuko thus far has been the risk of her succumbing to her demon urges. If she goes crazy and ends up killing someone, all hopes of Tanjiro saving her are gone as per the deal made with the Demon Slayer cause. When Tanjiro had to calm his sister down using their mother's lullaby in the entertainment district, I had a strong feeling that this wouldn't be the last we'd see of this new form, and that Nezuko learning to either control or avoid it would be vital for the story. Tanjiro even warns Nezuko not to transform at the beginning of the Hantengu fight because of the associated risks. But then, with no focus or consideration at all, Nezuko transforms early in the fight regardless, and the consequences are non-existent. She doesn't try to attack Tanjiro or Genya, and cooperates perfectly with the other members of the team despite the fact that her common sense should be compromised based on what we've seen. Nezuko's involvement in the fight and the story is limited to turning Tanjiro's blade red until the very end, in which she seemingly sacrifices her life so that Tanjiro can behead Hantengu. It is then revealed through a letter by Tamayo that Nezuko had been using all of her energy this whole time to conquer the sun. The only hints to this during the arc is that we're reminded shortly before Hantengu arrives that Tamayo's cat is collecting Nezuko's blood samples, and potentially the fact that Nezuko now has control over her adult form. To have both the development of Nezuko overcoming the side effects of her demon state and her conquering the sun happen off screen kills Nezuko's agency in the story, all for the sake of the plot twist. It is a shocking turn of events for the story and leads to interesting insight into Muzan's character, but that's all there is to it. A plot twist only works once, it shocks viewers once. A plot twist needs effective setup and ramifications to become a truly pivotal part of the story, and not just a fleeting headline. And considering Nezuko's involvement in the story after this is even less, it's difficult to think of Nezuko as more than a plot device who exists solely for Tanjiro's development. And Zenitsu's mental support, I guess. The Entertainment District arc consists of 31 chapters. Encased in those 31 chapters are the stories of a single pillar, a single upper moon, and main characters whose backstories and motivations were already established in earlier parts of the story. The Swordsmith Village arc has double the pillars, double the upper moons, an entirely new supporting cast around Tanjiro, and a location with far more world-building significance than the Entertainment District. And all that had to be fit into 30 chapters. That's right, the arc had less time than the last to do a lot more. It's no wonder then that the story feels so rushed. We've already talked about how shallow the upper moons are and how Tanjiro and Nezuko's developments were breezed past in favour of moving along the plot. And there's many more instances of plot points or developments being rushed or outright skipped. After Muicho slashes and breaks the Yoriichi Type 0 doll, the mechanic child Kotetsu is left depressed, and Tanjiro tries to comfort him by checking on the doll's condition. And it just works again somehow, with no input or fixing from the characters. Genya's antisocial personality and avoidance of Tanjiro dissipates almost instantaneously during the Hantengu fight. In the span of 2 chapters, we see Muicho's childhood, the reveal of his twin brother, the death of his entire family, the impact of Kaguya Ubuyashiki on his life, and his relationship with his previous swordsmith. Mind you, this isn't 2 chapters of dedicated backstory, we still cut back to the Gyoko fight multiple times. There's just not enough time given for any development to feel impactful because the arc has so many moving parts, none of which it's able to keep up with. Mitsuri has to leave the story for a while just to give the other characters some room to breathe. However, I don't think this arc's issues lean solely on pacing. The Infinity Train arc managed to effectively deliver 2 memorable demons, tell the story of a Hashira, and give Tanjirou noticeable development, all in just 13 chapters. And that's because the arc was crafted to deliver a brilliant self-contained story. The Swordsmith Village arc feels like it regresses back to Demon Slayer's earlier missions in terms of depth and significance, because all it really is preparation for the main event, for the Infinity Castle. This arc just feels like Gotouge had too many characters, power changes, and unexplored aspects of the world, but the Swordsmith Village arc was written in a way to lessen the burden. Because of these 30 chapters, we now know about how Ubuyashiki hides his facilities, about the swordsmiths, about who Genya, Muicha, and Mitsuri are, about how the Demon Slayer mark works, about inherited memories, and why and how Muzan became a demon, and what his primary motivation is. Along the way, we also got rid of 2 upper rank demons and got Nezuko to conquer the sun, giving us a clear-cut path to the series finale. This arc does a good job at delivering crucial exposition to readers, but it turbo boosts its pacing in order to get all the information out there, and to explain everything in an arc still filled with comedy and personality for the sake of making the story still fun to read. So it's no wonder that the backstories of both upper ranks essentially come down to this one double-page spread. It's no wonder that Tanjiro ends up with little to no development. It's no wonder that the majority of plot elements feel half-baked. Unfortunately, the Swordsmith Village was used as a means to set up the final battle in the Infinity Castle. An unfortunate reality considering not only the potential this arc had, but also that there still ended up being another arc after this in the Hashira training, which was much more openly written for this express purpose. With the Infinity Castle trilogy now on everyone's minds, fans will watch the intense battles, shocking revelations, and character journeys unfold, forgetting the sacrifices that earlier sections of the story made to give the final battle everything it needed. I described the Swordsmith Village arc earlier as a footnote in Tanjirou's story, and that's because, beyond the subsequent Hashira meeting, the impact of the story faded away almost completely. Kyojiro's death stuck around, Akaza's anger persisted, and the feeling of relief and motivation following Gyutaro's death persevered. But the Swordsmith Village left close to nothing behind, becoming Demon Slayer's most forgettable, disinteresting, and wasted story. Thank you for watching. This video has been a lot more negative in tone than what I've previously put out and what I plan to. I have other Demon Slayer videos planned that will be on the more positive, analytical side, so if you are a fan of the series, don't worry, I am too, and it will show. I do actually have a really long script draft of a potential rewrite of the Swordsmith Village arc that I might consider adapting into videos at a later stage when my editing skills, art, and equipment improve. So I assume that'll be a long time from now. As for my next video, I'm going to go back to Jujutsu Kaisen with a shorter entry that will act as additional content for my first video, The Philosophy of Jujutsu Kaisen. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again next video.